Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining us, to all the viewers on the GBC SPT broadcasting channel on Facebook. My name is Anuradha Dasi, and I am a member of the GBC strategic planning team. And I've been asked to host this very special session of the GBC SPT broadcast, where we are looking at a series of conversations celebrating the Incorporation Day of ISKCON by discussing the 7 purposes as laid out by Srila Prabhupada, which actually really started ISKCON. It's very interesting to note that Srila Prabhupada had made contact with a local lawyer on the Lower East Side, and he was asked to come to one of the programs one night, and Prabhupada asked him to stand up and just basically say what he was planning to do, which was to incorporate ISKCON. So today we're very honored to have a special guest speaker who is speaking and discussing the second purpose of ISKCON, which is to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as it is revealed in the great scriptures of India, the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so I'm very honored to welcome Her Grace Narayani Devi Dasi, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She is actually in the Alachua area, and I'm in West Virginia. She was actually supposed to be here in West Virginia with us for 6 weeks, but due to extra precautions around the pandemic, she chose to stay in the Alachua area. And I'm very grateful that you are there and safe, Narayani Prabhu. We definitely miss you here. So I'm really glad to be hosting this conversation. And may I please ask you to just say a little bit about yourself, especially how you came to meet Srila Prabhupada and how you came to Krishna consciousness?
Yes, it was 1970, and I was searching actually for a guru. I had read some Indian literature, Eastern literature. So I was in Boston searching. There were many gurus. I went guru shopping, trying the different ones, and then I met the devotees. So I asked them, what is your process? And they said, chant, dance, and eat. I said, okay, let me try. And they also had books too. So I was really interested in the books. And so then I said, so if I follow this process, what can I hope to achieve? And they said, you will see God. Now my last guru said, I would be God. But it didn't work. So I thought, yeah, better to see God than be God. And so it took a few months, and then I joined the temple. It was Boston. And Prabhupada actually pushed me, because they said, Prabhupada is coming, you could stay for the weekend. Prabhupada didn't come, but he sent 4 sannyasis, one of whom was Vishnujan Maharaj. So after a weekend of chanting on the streets, I decided, why should I go back home? I went home, said goodbye to my husband, and joined the temple. He joined 2 months later. So that worked out very well. Okay.
That's such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. I just wanted to add that you actually have done so many amazing services for Srila Prabhupada, including deity worship in the Calcutta temple. I love listening to stories about the Calcutta temple, or all your services in India, traveling book distribution in Western India for the Bombay temple. And also more recently, you are really renowned for teaching Bhakti Sastri, Bhakti Vaibhava and Bhaktivedanta courses in the VIHE. And you also helped write the VTE curriculum for the Bhakti Sastri, and you've written these amazing books called Srimad Bhagavatam at a Glance, which has a picture for every verse of the Bhagavatam, as well as the Bhagavad-gita at a glance. And I think this is such a phenomenal, massive service that you have done. And you visit all around teaching. I know that people flock to listen to your classes, and you have taught you're the main teacher for some of the more amazing teachers like Adipurush Prabhu and Prashanta, who are now teaching Bhakti Sastri and other courses. So, they're such erudite scholars themselves. So I just wanted to share that a little bit as well. So we are basically discussing the second purpose, I'm hoping that Sakshi Gopal Prabhu would put that purpose on the screen. I'll just go ahead and read that. To propagate a consciousness of Krishna, God, as it is revealed in the great scriptures of India, Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is just after the first purpose and focuses on Krishna person. So would you like to elaborate on that a little bit, especially in relation to the first purpose? In other words, how this indicates that spiritual knowledge or the techniques of spiritual life center on Krishna as a person, on Krishna as God as a person.
So right now, we're in Kali Yuga, the dark age, full of quarrel, full of hypocrisy. 5,000 years ago, the sages of Naimisharanya, who are in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, they were feeling separation from Krishna because he had just left the planet. So they asked Sutta, where can we find religious principles? Where can we find knowledge? Where can we find Krishna now that he has physically left our view? So Sutta Goswami answered that this Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun. I have one here, you can see. This Bhagavatam has risen like the sun after the departure of Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion and knowledge, etc. So persons who have lost their vision in this dense darkness of ignorance, Kali Yuga, will get light from this Purana. And it's not that there is no light in this age of Kali. We have the light, but people don't want to see the light. That's the problem. And so if we go on in Srimad Bhagavatam, this was in the first canto. In the sixth canto, it is explained in a verse by the Lord himself that he is present now in two forms. Those two forms are Parambrahma and Shabda Brahma. So Parambrahma is the deity form, and Shabda Brahma is the Bhagavatam and chanting Hare Krishna is the sound form. He's here. So the question was, how does spiritual knowledge and techniques of spiritual life center on him? Well, because the essence of spiritual knowledge is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. So we have a relationship with Krishna. And when we're convinced about this relationship, which is called Sambandha, or knowledge of relationship, then we act to make it real. And that is called Abhideya. So after we act in our relationship with Krishna, we have some knowledge, then finally we achieve the goal, and that is prema, or love of Godhead. And then we perfect our life. Our mission of life is fulfilled. We can see Krishna in the pages, Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of Krishna. Krishna spoke Gita also himself, and he eradicated all the cheating principles of religion. He said at the end, give up all varieties of religion, and cheating religion, of course. Surrender to me. So Bhagavatam starts with this message from Gita. There is a connection between Gita and Bhagavatam. And the second verse of Bhagavatam, it says, we throw out all cheating religion. So after Krishna left, he empowered Vyasadeva, who's incarnation of Krishna. And he left Bhagavad-gita when Arjuna was bereft of Krishna's association. He lost all his power. He was defeated. He remembered Bhagavad-gita. He remembered Krishna's instructions. And that's the same for us. We can remember Krishna by remembering his instructions in Gita and his pastimes in Bhagavatam. So this is the light of Kali Yuga. Of course, we have to hear from a self-realized soul. Prabhupada says in one purport in the first canto, one can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized soul. So we're hearing it from Prabhupada in his purports. We're very, very lucky. Lord Chaitanya, now in relationship to propagating the message, we have an order from Lord Chaitanya where he says, Jari Deko Tari Koho, Krishna Upadesh, whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna. Upadesh. Prabhupada has explained what this means. We should tell them what Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita. That surrender to me. Give up all varieties of mental speculation, of different cheating religion, and just surrender to me. So this is the message of Bhagavad-gita. And Bhagavatam, Gita is like the seed. Bhagavatam is like a plant which is growing from the seed. It expands. We hear a few things in Gita, but then in Bhagavatam, it's expanded into chapters. One verse, you get a whole chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the best for the people in this dark age of Kali. It's a wonderful offer from Krishna. He's saying, just take up. You surrender to me and I will protect you. Don't fear. Don't worry. Is that okay?
Yes, you make it sound so easy.
Prabhupada makes it sound easy. He said, finish in this life, only one life for Krishna.
Yeah, I really
felt like that. It was easy. We felt, it just take 1 or 2 years before we self-realized. Now, 40, 50 years later, we're still hoping for 1 or 2 more years.
Yeah, I really appreciated how you connected Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana to answering this question. Thank you very much. So the second question I have is, you're very well known as a diligent student of Srila Prabhupada's books. So what inspired you to dedicate so much time and energy? Please just, if you could share with us a little bit about your experience in getting a Bhaktivedanta degree, and what is the importance for the devotees of such degrees. We see it in the secular world, how people, very early on, they pursue higher studies, or even, they're late into their 50s or something, they take up studying MBAs or PhDs, So what was your experience in getting this Bhaktivedanta degree, and what message do you have for the devotees at large?
So before I speak about the Bhaktivedanta degree, I would just like to give you a little background on my experience with Prabhupada's books. The first day I joined, they gave me the Isha Upanishad and they showed me the Sanskrit in the back. And they said, okay, you have to type Bhagavad-gita. It was the Macmillan edition. You have to learn to read Sanskrit and transliterate while you're typing. So that was the first day I joined. And as I was typing Bhagavad-gita, and then I was in India, I was typing Bhagavatam when Prabhupada would visit Calcutta. When Prabhupada went to Mayapur, I was typing Chaitanya Charitamrita for him there. I had the same thing. I had to learn Bengali to go with Prabhupada, how to read Bengali. So that was a wonderful experience. So mostly I was in Calcutta when Prabhupada was here. There were no books in India. So, and I had a burning desire to read Prabhupada's books. I got a few before I left for India. That's just the first volume, first canto and little second canto, Bhagavatam, Gita, Krishna book, but nothing else. So from 1974, devotees started to come through Calcutta to Mayapur, and I would see devotees with books under their arms, and I would go and beg them from the books, and they would give me. So I got a full set of Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita that way, and I could satisfy my burning desire to read. And so then I came to Vrindavan in 1994, and I didn't have a service. So I was praying, what's my next service? So I thought, okay, until I know, I'm just going to read, because that's what I like to do. So I was reading, and I was trying to chant very attentively. I did my own japa reform. And after 3 months of just reading, I got the inspiration in japa. Not only should I read, I should share what I read. Because by that time, by 1994, I had read the books at least 10 times, all of the books, whatever was there. So, because before I was a devotee, I was, from the age of 7, I was an avid reader. I would go to the library and I would take 10 books a week. And my purpose, my my goal was to read the whole library. But once I got Prabhupada's books, that was it for the library. One book was enough to satisfy my desires. So here I was in Vrindavana, and I got this inspiration from within that I should teach. I wasn't so confident. I thought, I need some more confirmation from Srila Prabhupada. So I went to Prabhupada Samadhi, and there was a cassette tape playing. Prabhupada said, "Do you think the deity is made of stone?" I said, "No, Prabhupada, you're here, but I'd like some confirmation." So then I got the inspiration to go to Prabhupada's house. There was a letter on the desk that spoke to me. It said, "Now you are one of my senior disciples. I'm depending on you. You have learned the art of Krishna consciousness, so you should teach it purely for the benefit of others." So I said, okay, I got the order from Prabhupada. But the problem was in Vrindavan 1994, women couldn't speak in the temple. They couldn't give Gita class. Even VIHE was only for men, Bhakti Sastri. So I thought, okay, but it's the order of Prabhupada. I have to do it. So I was living outside in a private house. So I started teaching there. But after a few months, the guards of the house said, "This is a private house. You can't bring people here." So then I went on top of the Krishna Balaram guest house. And I was teaching up there. And after a year, I got a place. Then I taught there for 2 years. In 1997, VIHE opened to women's Bhakti Sastri. So I started teaching there. And after a year of teaching the women, they asked me to teach the brahmacharis because the teacher didn't show up. So, and that year, they asked me to travel. I started traveling in Europe and teaching. So the lesson I learned was, even if you don't have facility, you just have to make it. If you have the order from the spiritual master, you have to make it. So then I taught Bhakti Sastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, and Bhaktivedanta without any degree. And I still don't have a degree, but they say that those who teach will get one. So hopefully I'll get one. So the importance of such degrees for devotees, Prabhupada wrote a letter in 1969 to Hans Duda. "One who will pass this examination will be awarded with the title of Bhaktivedanta. I want that all my spiritual sons and daughters will inherit this title of Bhaktivedanta, so the family transcendental diploma will continue through the generations. Those possessing the title of Bhaktivedanta will be allowed to initiate disciples. Maybe by 1975, all of my disciples will be allowed to initiate and increase the numbers of the generations. That is my program. So we should not simply publish these books for reading by outsiders, but our students must be well-versed in all of our books so we can be prepared to defeat all opposing parties in the matter of self-realization." Is that okay?
That's really wonderful. I loved hearing how, from having no facility, just by starting with this idea that if you teach what you were learning, that facility just opened up.
It opened up.
That's just really, I think that's an inspiration for everyone who feels that, well, all I have is just my little, circle, or just, me and just a few other people that I can, I can share this with. But actually, facility, Krishna provides you with that facility and reciprocates with your endeavor.
You have to take one step.
It sounds like all you do is take one step, and then Krishna takes so many steps towards you.
Yeah, the door's open. The doors might look closed, but if you try to go in that direction, then the door is open.
Thank you so much, Narayani Prabhu. Thank you so much. So the next question is, Srila Prabhupada, at the time of establishing this purpose, only had the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And just for our viewers, the purpose that we're discussing is on the screen right now, to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as it is revealed in the great scriptures of India, the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're talking about here that Prabhupada just had the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you think that if that he would have included also the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Nectar of Devotion if the purpose would have been written later?
Certainly he would have included Chaitanya Charitamrita and Nectar of Devotion. We did have teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So I would like to read you something from Nectar of Devotion, which supports this point. Now, Nectar of Devotion came out just before I joined in 1970, so it wasn't there in 1966. So here's what he says in Nectar of Devotion, chapter 7. Practically, if one very carefully reads Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and Nectar of Devotion, that will give him sufficient knowledge to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. One need not take the trouble of reading other books. So he did include in Nectar of Devotion, then he expanded it to these four books. So as I was saying, that Bhagavad Gita is like the seed, Bhagavatam is the plant unfolding, and then they give us some idea Abhidya Prayojan, but Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar Devotion, is more like the flowers and the fruit of the plant. We get love of Godhead given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna brought it, but the treasure was locked. Now, Prabhupada, when he was on a morning walk, one devotee said, "It seems Lord Chaitanya preached in India, but left the rest of the world for you." So Prabhupada said, "And for you." So Krishna brought the treasure of Krishna Prema. It was locked. Chaitanya Charitamrita says that. Lord Chaitanya opened the treasure, ate the contents, distributed it freely all over India. 500 years later, it was still locked for the rest of the world, and even for modern day India. So Prabhupada took that treasure. He opened it up, gave it to everyone in every country, regardless of birth or qualification. So Lord Chaitanya, he's described as a gardener of the tree of devotional service. And this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi, 9th chapter. There's a verse, it says, the branches of the Chaitanya tree formed a cluster or society with great branches covering all the universe. So in the purport, Prabhupada said, our International Society for Krishna Consciousness is one of the branches of the Chaitanya tree. So then, Lord Chaitanya, Krishnadas Kaviraj continues, from each branch grew many hundreds of sub-branches. No one can count how many branches. The fruits ripened, became sweet, nectarian. Lord Chaitanya distributed without considering who was fit and who was not fit. And when the poor, hungry people ate the fruit, the gardener smiled. Lord Chaitanya said, I'm the only gardener. How many places can I go? How many fruits can I pick and distribute? Therefore, I order every man within this universe to accept this Krishna conscious movement and distribute it everywhere. So we have this order from Lord Chaitanya. We got the fruit now. We got it. We're tasting it. So we have to distribute it. And we have and Lord Prabhupada is giving us the same order. To one devotee, he said, Sankirtan will keep you happy, and the books will keep you convinced. So that is our order. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. So Sankirtan will keep you happy.
Yeah.
And the books will keep you
convinced. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, Anuttama Prabhu had a wonderful conversation with His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and they were speaking on one of the purposes as well. And they were playing with these words of the founder and the foundational principles, and how our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, created these foundational principles, but he also went around the world finding his devotees. And I can see that he really found such a treasure in you, Narayani Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhupada's mercy. That's all I am. For sure.
Thank you so much. So the next question is, it's based on kind of the situation in the world right now and how quickly we're moving, with technology. The world is losing the capacity of focus and power, of concentration through technology. Although technology is supposed to be, really helping us, and we can see right now how we depend on technology to share this particular purpose and to connect with you in a totally different part of the country.
Exactly.
but technology, we're just bombarded with bits of information, always embedded with eye-catching graphics, So how in this situation that is so needed, like we see right now, how in the situation of permanent distraction can devotees really absorb themselves in the books of Srila Prabhupada, which don't offer, such immediate sensual rewards, like, in terms of social media, for instance? What can you share with us that can help us with this?
Well, people are suffering, and social media is not helping them. Of course, what we really need is food for the soul. So as you said, we're using the social media right now. We're using the technology, but everyone has a choice if they want to degrade themselves or uplift themselves. So technology is not bad, but it can be used for Krishna. And Prabhupada accepted everything in Krishna's service. That is Yukta Vairagya. We are using technology. There is one interesting purport. I think it was in the prayers of Shukadeva Swami. Prabhupada was talking about the mental speculators, Mayavadis, and he said, they are acting on the mental speculator exchange. So if you go to Facebook, the first thing they say, what's on your mind? So here we have the mental speculator exchange. I think Prabhupada predicted it 50 years ago. Mental speculator exchange. Everyone's expressing, but this exchange cannot satisfy anyone. So mostly what we see on social media is described in Bhagavatam in the first canto, 5th chapter, by Narada to Vyasadeva. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord are considered by saintly persons to be places of pilgrimage for the crows. Crows go to the garbage, they eat the garbage things. So this is what's happening in social media quite a bit. So what we have to do is the next verse. On the other hand, that literature full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, or form, pastimes of the Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So we have to make it attractive for the people to pick up and read Prabhupada's books. When Prabhupada first landed in America, he had faith in, he quoted Bhagavatam, 4 verses of Bhagavatam. He noticed in his, he was saying, most of the people here are covered by passion and ignorance. They think themselves happy in material life. They have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I don't know how they'll be able to understand it. But then Prabhupada said, I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. So Krishna is more expert than social media, and he has his ways, and it's coming through his book. Prabhupada, again, he goes on, he says, I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. So we need to have faith in Krishna. Prabhupada went alone to America, and he had faith in the holy name. And what did he bring with him? Srimad Bhagavatam. He brought cases of books. He thought, okay, this is my revolutionary weapons, holy name and the books. So he came armed, but he prayed to Krishna at the same time. We have our endeavor, but at the same time we have to pray. So Prabhupada said, all living entities have become under the control of the illusory energy by your will. Therefore, if you like by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. And then Prabhupada said something. That's why we are all here today. Prabhupada said, I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. So Prabhupada had the desire. We understand Bhagavatam. We take up this Krishna consciousness. So if a pure devotee says something, Krishna has to make it come true. Prabhupada said, I wish. And that's why we can understand Bhagavatam. And he said the words of Bhagavatam are your incarnation. If a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, he will be able to understand your message. So then I'll just read the first 2 verses of the group that he quoted, Shri Krishna, personality of Godhead, Paramatma in everyone's heart, benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous and properly heard and chanted. Then the second verse, by regular attendance in class on Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Loving service to the personality of Godhead, whose praise of transcendental songs establish an irrevocable fact. Now, Prabhupada in the beginning of Bhagavatam tells us what is the qualification to hear this message. Hear it submissively in the purport. Be anxious to hear this message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. So we must desire, we must be anxious, we must be submissive. The message will penetrate our heart. And Prabhupada, in the purport of the second verse of Bhagavatam, said, if intelligent person can be assured by Vyasadeva, he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, without undergoing different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas. One can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahansa simply by agreeing to receive this message. So we just have to agree. Be submissive, be attentive, hear Bhagavatam. Is that okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Narayani Prabhu. I'm actually just going to take this opportunity to share with our viewers that we're at our halfway mark. So we still have a lot to hear from Narayani Prabhu. Go ahead and use that technology right now and press the share button so that everyone else that you know, all of your friends on your personal Facebook pages can jump on the stream and hear from Narayani and get really inspired to take up the studying of these transcendental literatures and also share the beautiful knowledge and wisdom that we have. So go ahead and press the share button. And if you haven't already liked and followed our page, go ahead and do that so that we can actually keep sharing with you these wonderful events and all these beautiful projects that we have going on to honor Srila Prabhupada and our ISKCON movement. So for the next couple of days, we're going to be discussing the 7 purposes of ISKCON in order to honor the Incorporation Day, the day that is known to be ISKCON's birthday, but to also honor our founder, Srila Prabhupada, and these foundational principles that he created for our movement so that the movement is going to perpetuate for the next, however many thousands of years. So thank you for joining us on this GBC SPT channel. So Narayani Prabhu, I'm going to ask you the next question.
Okay.
And that is how not to become tired of the same philosophy and maintain attraction for the pages of the Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. One might think like, oh yeah, I know this philosophy. Why should I read the same things again and again? And at the very beginning of this interview, you spoke about how you were such an avid reader. You wanted to read the entire library. You ended up reading all of Prabhupada's books, which I still can't even get my mind around 10 times. So this was, which year was this that you
94. It was 27 years after I was a devotee.
27 years after you were a devotee, you had read all of Srila Prabhupada's books 10 times.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
That is so inspiring. So what can you share with our viewers and all of the people who are going to be watching this video after streaming this? Why should I read the same things again and again? Why did you read the same things again and again?
Well, the thing is that there's 2 kinds of realization or reading, theoretical and practical. There's Gyan and there's Vigyan. There's theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge. So if you just keep it theoretical, then it won't make you inspired so much. I mean, it's good. You can keep reading. But the important thing is to make it realized. Apply it to your life. Like if you read in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says the first instruction, Tam Siti Shasvabharata, just tolerate. So for a day or for an hour, try tolerating, or for a week or a month. You just try to apply what you've heard. or share it with someone. So at the end of the Bhagavatam, I would like to share you some tips for studying Bhagavatam. There is a verse, 12, 13, 18, and it tells us how to study, how to make it real. And so I'll read the English first. Anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. So there's four Sanskrit words, Shinvan, hearing. So what I did, I would sing the verses with the tambura that I was studying. I would be singing also. And supatan, chanting. That's chanting actually, and hearing. Supatan means chanting. It can also mean reading out loud. If you read out loud, it makes a big difference. You remember it. If you just read silently, it may not go in your head, or it may go in and go out. But if you read it, it stays for some time longer. So first, hearing, chanting. Then vicharanapara means to be introspective, be serious about understanding how can I apply this to my life in Krishna consciousness. How does this change my worldview? How does this change my mental outlook? How does this change my vision? Then, of course, then the last Sanskrit is bhakti, with devotion. Do all of them with devotion, hearing, chanting, and remembering or being introspective. Now, I can also share with you some ideas with Virjan Prabhu. He has some ideas. And so he gave us a seminar on reading Prabhupada's books. So I'd like to share with you what the points that he made. So he's first said you should have a sacred space, a place where you can be alone, uninterrupted, quiet for a specific time. Second, you should have a humble attitude. Take time to cultivate an appropriate attitude of approach to your reading of a soul who is in need of inspiration, association, guidance, mercy. Be humble. Third, you can offer prayers. Before starting, you can offer prayers to Shukadev, to Srila Prabhupada, to Arjuna if you're reading Bhagavad-gita. Offer prayers to those who will associate with in your reading so you can hear something of relevance for your life. Then when you start reading, read slowly. Again, the purpose of this kind of reading is not quantity, but meaningful association. So while you're reading, you should find interesting words. Read until a word, a phrase, or an idea strikes you or catches your attention. Stop at that point. You may repeat that meaningful phrase to yourself over and over. Just stay with that point until you've sufficiently meditated upon it or until it no longer maintains your attention. So when you're ready to read again, slowly read until another point strikes you as special and repeat the process often as you wish for as long as your allotted reading time remains. And 7, offer obeisances. When your time is up, offer obeisances. And if you like, you can offer words of appreciation for any realizations that may have been offered to you. And lastly, you should apply it. As much as you're able, assimilate what you have read and realized into your life. So, is Anuradha back yet? Are you with me? Yes. Is that okay?
Yes, that was really wonderful. Recently, there was a conversation by Prabhupada Priya
Mm-hmm.
Dasi from I think she lives in Krishna House.
Okay.
Now, and she made a really nice point that I thought that my husband and I are actually incorporating into our reading daily, and that is to look at something in the purport and change it as if Srila Prabhupada is speaking to you or Krishna is speaking to you, or to say, Anuradha, and just kind of reflect on the purport. And I can see what you were saying about, paying obeisances or saying some words of appreciation, making what you're reading, really honoring what you're reading as the words of Krishna, as these ecstasies, the purpose being the ecstasies of Srila Prabhupada. And I really appreciate those tips. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm definitely going to have to go back to the stream and listen to your suggestions again and incorporate that. Thank you so much, Narayani Prabhu. So could I move on to the next question?
Yes.
Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gita are non-different from Krishna. So this is just in relation to what you spoke about, how you honor the purpose and how you read them. Would you like to elaborate on that, both theologically and in relationship to your personal experience?
So theologically, I would like to share with you a verse from the first canto, which says, "This scripture named Srimad Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect." Prabhupada says, Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of Lord Krishna, non-different from him. Bhagavatam should be worshipped as respectfully as we worship the Lord. Thereby, we can derive the ultimate blessings of the Lord through its careful and patient study. As God is all light, all bliss, and all perfection, so also is Srimad Bhagavatam. We can have all the transcendental light of the Supreme Brahman, Shri Krishna, from the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, provided it is received through the medium of the transparent spiritual masters. So, Bhagavatam and Gita are meant to help us develop our appreciation for lessons in life lessons. And one interesting thing I saw, because, I am the teacher, I was the teacher of Bhagavatam Gita. I would give exams to my students. But for me, the exam was in real life. Whatever I was studying, I was going through in my life. So I'd like to share with you what happened to me when I was studying Bhagavatam. So there's three experiences. First one was Devahuti in the third canto. She was having a makeover after she was so thin and sick. So I had been so many years in the movement, like kind of thin and sickly. I went for a health retreat. And that was when I was studying Devahuti's makeover, where she became healthy. Then another one day in Vrindavana, I was studying two snakes in one day, Kaliya and Aghasura, for teaching about them. So I had a nap in my bedroom, and when I woke up, there was a snake across my door. And so I said, Krishna, and he ran into the next room. I closed the door behind him, and one Muslim worker from MBT next door came and caught him. He didn't kill him. He said, "No, I don't want the karma." Here's a Muslim. I don't want the karma for killing the snake. Yes. So then the most important thing that happened to me was when I was studying Dhruva Maharaj fighting with the yakshas. So what happened to me is I went for a biopsy. They put me under anesthesia. I was allergic to the anesthesia, and I couldn't breathe. They told me after. I mean, I was awake, but I had lost my identity. I was completely conscious. Everything was black, and I was like a molecular atom. I had no idea of identity or anything, subtle gross bodies. So in that state of darkness, all of a sudden, I saw the holy name coming like a screensaver, multicolor. And I started chanting, even though I didn't have a tongue. And as soon as I started chanting, my memory came back, and I said, "Oh, I'm Narayani Dasi. I'm a devotee of Krishna, and I don't see, it looks like I left my body, and how come I didn't go to Krishna?" I was upset. So I was just reading. I was composing prayers in Sanskrit, though I don't know Sanskrit. And I just remember the prayer I made. The end was Sharanam Prapadye. I surrender to you. And yeah, so it took about 4 hours before I came to consciousness. I was supposed to be only in there for a half hour. And I could hear, but I couldn't see when I woke up. And they were talking to me, and I said, what happened? They said, oh, this is normal. Nothing happened. No, I didn't believe them. No, I didn't. I saw, because day was changing. I could see darkness and light. So I saw day was changing to night, and I shouldn't have been there at that time of day. So anyway, but then after 1 week, I went back to my study. And sure enough, it was exactly what was happening to Dhruva. He was fighting with the yakshas, and they did all these mystic dramas. They sent these different kinds of visions and things that confused him and made him forget. And I stopped studying before the last verse of the chapter. And what did the last verse say? These sages said to him, just chant the holy name and you will conquer over death. So it happened. It happened to me. So that is, if you apply the Bhagavatam, if you study Bhagavatam, you do get the lessons. You get the lessons of life. And many realizations I have from that. Krishna, if you die, Krishna doesn't forget you. If you forget, I forgot everything. I didn't know who I was. But Krishna remembered me. He came in the form of the holy name. And I saw it before I chanted it. It was a form. Yeah. So Prabhupada, he was talking to Kirti, and he said, in 3 different books, he said the same thing. A Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad-gita, and Krishna book. So Prabhupada was reading Krishna book, and he said to Kirti, if you just read this one book, you will be Krishna conscious. Then he said, if you just read this one chapter, you will be Krishna conscious. And then he said, if you just read this one page, you'll be Krishna conscious, you'll get perfection. And he said, you just read one line, you'll get perfection. And he said, you just read one word. You'll get so take up the book and read a line, read a chapter, read a verse, and you will get perfection. And another time, Prabhupada said, if you read a chapter a day of Bhagavatam for 1 year, you'll become a learned scholar. So I did that. I was not a chapter. I would just read like prayers. I would sing prayers. And after that, I started teaching Bhagavatam. It works. So in the Gita Mahatmya, it said the Gita is just like a cow. Krishna is the cowherd boy, milking the cow. Arjuna is like a calf. Learned scholars, pure devotees drink the nectarian milk of Gita. And as far as Bhagavatam goes, Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that the sun in the sky can reveal external objects, but Gornitai, they enter your heart, and they can dissipate the darkness of the innermost core of the heart and reveal the 2 kinds of Bhagavatas, book and devotee. And when these 2 Bhagavats act in your heart, you get prema, you get bhakti. And then you can control the Lord in the heart. So this is what's happening in our heart if we hear attentively the message of Bhagavatam. So I'd like to leave you with a benediction from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 8th chapter, verses 4 to 6. Persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly are always taking the matter very seriously. We'll have the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna manifested in their hearts within a short time. Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of Krishna's supreme soul, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus, it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. So Prabhupada says, by sincere efforts to hear Bhagavatam, one realizes his constitutional relationship with the Lord in servitude, friendship, parental affection, or conjugal love. Then the last verse, a pure devotee of the Lord whose heart has once been cleansed by the process of devotional service never relinquishes the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, for they fully satisfy him as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey. So Prabhupada said the preachers may take so much trouble, but these difficulties are very gladly suffered by the devotees in preaching, because in such activities, although apparently very severe, devotees feel transcendental pleasure because the Lord is satisfied. And Prabhupada has also said, a few days austerity on Sankirtan is equal to 60,000 years austerity by Valmiki. Vaisheshika said in a darshan with book distributors, Prabhupada said, you must read the books. I painstakingly translated all these books for your benefit because I want you all to become pure devotees. And that was Prabhupada's desire. Read his books, share them, make our lives perfect, and help others become Krishna conscious. Is that okay?
That's brilliant. Those stories. I got goosebumps listening to those stories.
It happened.
Thank you so much. So we have about 9 minutes left for our interview. I'm going to ask you just one more question, and then we're going to take a couple of questions from our viewers. And that is, I'd like to just hear a little bit about your journey of writing your Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance. And if you could just share with our viewers how, and maybe Sakshi Gopal Prabhu could put up the link. Is there how we can purchase these books? Is it readily available?
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the link, but maybe you can find it on Google. Yeah, so I was studying with Burijan Prabhu and teaching with him, and he said I should learn what's in all the chapters of Bhagavatam. So then I got the idea, okay, I'll do it pictorially. I'll make a picture for every chapter. So that was the first book I made of Bhagavatam. But I was thinking, well, how I want to show the whole Bhagavatam in one page. What does it look like? So then I thought, well, it's incarnation of Krishna, so Krishna's form must be there. And then I found this quote from the Puranas that said the lotus feet are the second cantos, his legs are 3 and 4, his waist is 5, his chest is 6, 7, 8 his arms, and 9 his neck, smiling face is 10th canto, forehead is 11, and his whole head is 12. So then I visualized how all the cantos fit into the different parts of his body. So I made that picture. And then after that, that I got it while I was chanting japa. I was praying for inspiration to see what it should look like. And then, yeah, we worked. I have an artist, and we discussed every single verse. And she would have her ideas, and I would say yes, no, or something else. Okay, no, it's not that. We have to do this. So every single verse we discussed, and she drew sketches while we were discussing. Yeah, so that was basically. And then Krishna sent some money for printing. And so this is what you showed on the screen. That's only one book you can get. But if you go to Rasa Biharilal, Rich Basi Exports, you can get the hard copy. Or you can go to Vidya. I think the name is Vidya Books. Vidya. There's 2 places in Vrndavana you can order and get the hard copies. All of them. There's like 14, 15 right now. And the soft copy is on Amazon. Just one book, the whole Bhagavatam, not the separate cantos. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we'll go ahead and put up that link again. And to our viewers, please go ahead and purchase these books. They're such a wonderful resource, especially if you're working with your children reading Bhagavatam as well. This is really a fabulous resource. So I'm going to just ask our magic technician, Gopal Prabhu, if you can put up the first question that you chose for Narayani Prabhu. We have about 5 or 6 minutes left, and we'll see how many questions we can get through. So the first question that he is going to put up is by Stephanie Gomez. Practicing and preaching, how can we distinguish in our scriptures which are statements that cannot be changed from others that can be changed according to time and circumstance?
So there are 2 categories, principles and details. Principles cannot be changed, details can be changed. So basically what you see in the scriptures are principles. And if you want to find application, how you can use the principles, you go to Prabhupada's lectures, go to his letters, and he will apply the principles for you. Just like I can give you an example. We see in Varnashram, it is said, there's a verse in Bhagavatam, it says, if you get a salary, then that means you're a Shudra. But when Prabhupada was here, we had a lot of Brahminical devotees. Satsarup was working, Brahmananda was working, Gopal Krishna Maharaj was working with the Shudras. And so Prabhupada wrote a letter to Gopal Krishna because Gopal Krishna Maharaj had that question. He was a Grihastha then. He said, am I a Shudra because I'm getting a salary? Prabhupada answered the question. He said, a devotee, a Vaishnava is never a Shudra. He said, you are working for Krishna. Your job is for Krishna. You're working your job and you are a devotee. So never think like that. You are always in Krishna consciousness. You're working for Krishna. So that's an example of, you can misinterpret. You can read the statement. It says, if you get a salary, you're a Shudra. And you think, oh my God, you're a Shudra because you're getting a salary. No, you have to see the application. This is a detail. This is a detail, actually. So Prabhupada, he applied, you have to really study the lectures and the application and the personal life of Prabhupada with his disciples. How did he apply these principles that we see in the scriptures? Okay?
Thank you. Yes. I appreciated that you also referenced Prabhupada's letters. And in his letters, you definitely see how he deals with devotees based on circumstances differently, but never really moving far away from his principles with the details changing. Thank you. The next question is by Madan Gopal Prabhu from New Jersey. What can we do in this day and age to jumpstart a strong desire or taste to deeply study Srila Prabhupada's books among our largely congregational society, which is so different in many ways from the way we were in the 70s, most devotees hearing twice daily and fully engaged in preaching? Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu. Really good question.
Okay, the first thing you should do is tell your congregational members to keep a book of Srila Prabhupada open in every room of their house. And then whenever they pass by, they can just have a glance at it and see what the message for the day is for them. And other than that, I think you can get some tips from VIHE Prabhu, who is very successful in getting his congregation to read the books. They read a chapter a day for a month, different chapters. They all read separately, but at the same time together. So you can get some ideas from VIHE Prabhu also.
Thank you. And I think we have, is there one more question, Sakshi Gopal Prabhu? Yes, by Tri Shakti. How do you preach with persons who think that statements in the Bhagavatam are racist, sexist, or against the norm of present-day society?
Generally, Bhagavatam, like if, for example, it says women are less intelligent. So you may say this is sexist. So what you have to do is see, again, go to the lecture, see how did Prabhupada apply this? How did he apply this to his female disciples? We don't feel he was sexist with us at all. I did everything that the men did. You know, I went to traveling Sankirtan. I just did deities in India. I did Sankirtan. In fact, it was the ladies who first did it in India. They were the first pujaris. They were the first traveling Sankirtan devotees. And I taught them in deity worship, and they learned from us to do traveling Sankirtan, and I taught them Shastra too. So, and that was even after Prabhupada left. But the one thing you can also reference here is, again, Prabhupada's lectures. When he would quote these verses like that, he would also counteract it with saying, yes, this is true for a person in materialistic life who thinks he's the body. But when you take up spiritual life, everything changes. And you're no longer a woman. You're no longer black, white. You're a spirit soul. Your spirit soul. So you should be intelligent and take up spiritual life and see how actually you are not no longer. One time, Prabhupada, I think one woman wrote to Prabhupada about this, and he said, if you think you're a woman, then you won't advance in spiritual life. If that's your consciousness, I'm a woman, there's that, then no. So that's when I got the order to preach and teach, and there was no facility. I thought, I didn't say, oh yeah, this is too terrible, I'm a woman. No, you just have to do it. You just do it. That's the slogan. There's no obstacle to anything in spiritual life. If you have desire, the only obstacle is your own mind and your own desire. So yeah, you preach to people that, yeah, don't be less intelligent. Join our movement and be most intelligent. Prabhupada said the women are most intelligent as devotees.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, it seems like the one way of, with respect to this question, is also really understanding and reading the purpose and of Srila Prabhupada and being able to, you know, present it to those particular concerned persons. Is it okay if we just stay on for a few more minutes? I do not want to approach on your time. I feel like I really want to ask you this one last question.
Okay.
It's something that really inspired me years ago when I met you, and that is with respect to shloka memorization.
Okay.
Could you share with our viewers this amazing process that you've developed?
Well,
how you approach this and why you think it's important for devotees.
Well, I got inspired. Actually, before, when I was a new devotee, then of course I was memorizing all the time, and I just had a good memory. So like, I just knew. And Jadharani would wake me up, and before I was in ladies' ashram for 2 months, she would say, "Okay, wake up. What's Bhagavad-gita 2:24?" And we'd have to tell her. So I learned the whole Gita in 2 months that way. And then after, we didn't have the Sanskrit though. So then when we got the Sanskrit, then I was learning it because I just liked it. I was happy. It made me happy. Then I forgot, when I got my baby, I forgot all my slokas. And then 1996 came, was Prabhupada's centennial. So I made a vow, I'm going to learn 400 more slokas. And so I did it, and then even more. And so what I do now, every day when I wake up, first thing in the morning, after showering, brushing my teeth, I chant my slokas. Like I do a chapter of Gita or a chapter of Bhagavatam. And that's the way to do it. The only way you can learn slokas is to say them every day. That's the process. Just repetition. That's how we learn the prayers. Just repeat it every day, and then you'll have it. And the importance was, I did have an experience with Srila Prabhupada in Calcutta when Prabhupada was giving Bhagavad-gita class, chapter 9, verse 11. And all the men had the books and they were saying the verse. Ladies didn't have the books. I knew the verse. I said it by memory. So Prabhupada was so happy. I didn't need a book. I knew the verse. He was really happy with that. So if you want to make Prabhupada happy, learn slokas. And it's also very nice for you. First thing in the morning, it wakes you up and keeps your brain sharp and keeps you alert.
I never tire of hearing that sharing from you, Narayani Prabhu. Thank you so much. So today we discussed with Narayani Prabhu the second purpose of the 7 purposes of ISKCON that actually celebrated that we're honoring in this GBC SPT platform, which is to propagate a consciousness of Krishna, God, as it is revealed in the great scriptures of India, Bhagavad-gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So with that, I just want to thank you so much, Narayani Prabhu. We're so honored to have you here today. You shared such a wealth of knowledge, realized knowledge. That was what I really got from this, that this is how you don't just teach scriptures, you actually really practically realize it in your life. You practice it every day. And we're so grateful to have had you come. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you.
We have actually one more event today with His Holiness Jayapataka Swami. We had an event earlier with Lokanath Swami, so encourage all of our viewers to check those out afterwards. Make sure that you share it. Encourage other people to share and follow the GBC SPT page, and so that we can actually get out all of this information and curated information and information about projects in ISKCON, especially to share and have you associate with devotees like Narayani Prabhu as well. So with that, I'm going to ask actually Gopal Prabhu if you can please put up the 7 purposes banner of ISKCON, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you again, Narayani Prabhu.
Prabhupada's mercy.
Hare
Krishna.
Yes. So you see, yes, there are the 7 purposes of ISKCON there.